Kenmore City Council is now in session. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Kugler.
Here.
Councilmember File.
Present.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane.
Here.
Councilmember Shrubnik.
Here.
Mayor Herbig.
Here.
All present.
Would you all please stand and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Unless there's any objections, the agenda will stand approved. Seeing no objections, the agenda is approved. Next, we have two presentations. First one is about our legislative session wrap up. Kenmore is very lucky to have three new state legislators who are willing to spend the time to get to know Kenmore, the city and our issues, and then advocate for us down in Olympia. Over the last few months after redistricting, we built strong relationships, I think, with our new delegation. And we're really grateful for all the time that they gave us prior to session to really get up to speed on what we were advocating for as a city. So first item on tonight's agenda serves two purposes. The first is to say thank you to Senator Derek Stanford, Representative Davina Dewar, and Representative Shelley Kloba for representing us in Olympia and supporting the city's legislative priorities. And the second purpose is to hear from each of them on the outcomes from the 2023 session. If you wanted to join us, do you want to come on up to the table? Is Representative Kloba joining? Do we know? Okay. Well, I'll just kick us off by saying that I think we had a pretty ambitious legislative agenda. I don't want to run through everything that we had on the agenda, but I do want to mention some progress that we made on three of our top six. We wanted to see the legislature pass statewide policies regarding climate change to provide ample resources to local governments to implement those plans. And we want to really thank Representative Dewar for the work on House Bill 1181, which was signed into law and requires all GMA cities to incorporate climate planning into their comprehensive plans. That's a big deal, and we really appreciate that. We also had a really bold request for $5 million to complete the funding gap for the Kenmore Supportive Housing Project, also known as the Plymouth Affordable Housing Development, that's going to be over at the Shell property. And this was supported by all of our legislators and led by Representative Kloba, since she sits on the House Capital Budget Committee. We had some unexpected twists and turns with that one. But at the end of the day, the legislature did make available the full $5 million for the project, an outcome that wouldn't have happened without all of your help. We really appreciate that. And that money led to the unlocking of the federal income tax credit, which it completes our funding for the project, and we'll be breaking ground on that relatively soon. And then we also requested change to state law to allow local clean air agencies the authority to declare air pollution emergencies during extended periods of unhealthy air created by wildfire smoke, something we're having to deal with on a more regular basis nowadays, unfortunately. Senator Stanford introduced Senate Bill 5535, which would have done just that. We really are thankful for your leadership and willingness to take on kind of a novel idea at the last second, and at least starting a conversation about that. Finally, we advocated for substantial investments in safe routes to schools and pedestrian and bike safety grant programs, since we knew that at a higher level of funding for those programs, the city would get more money. There's more projects get funded. And while we didn't get every project we hoped for, we did receive over $5 million in grant funding for 3 different projects in the city that will improve bike and ped safety. And that's a huge priority for the council. We really can't thank you enough for all of your work. And I want to turn it over to you, and you can tell us a little bit about, fill us in on the rest of session, if you'd like.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, I don't know. End of session was like eons ago. I don't even know if I remember what happened. It was such a blur. Yeah, I mean, it was a very busy session. It was my first year serving as the local government chair. So that's with no sleep. That's probably why I have no memory recollection. But we got a lot of work done. Obviously, the climate change bill was near and dear to my heart. And I just want to thank you for advocating so strongly for it and having it be your #1 legislative priority because that did carry a lot of weight and it buoyed me in the tough times. So thank you for that. I think probably the biggest thing we did, there's so many to choose from, but was fixing the Blake issue. Obviously, we needed a special session for that, but in the end, it was very bipartisan. I think it was 80-something votes for that bill during special session. So while it isn't everything I would have liked, I think it's a good compromise and an incremental step to the right direction. So I count that as one of our bigger wins. Obviously, missing middle passed. That'll be a big change for you guys as well. And, you know, a lot of housing bills trying to get at making housing easier with permitting, with cost, with allowing more different types of housing. One of the bills I worked on was CPIC exemptions for housing. And that it puts SEPA at the beginning of your comprehensive plan rather than project by project, which I think will ease wait times considerably. And then things like, you know, single stair, allowing single stairs in some buildings and some municipalities that have adequate resources and response times, which will greatly, I think, affect the cost of housing. So a lot of housing bills, I would say that was probably one of our biggest. And then I'll thank you for all of your support. I love representing Kenmore. I'm so proud to be your legislator. And as I said at the groundbreaking for your new park, you guys have something very special going on. So you should be very proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Stanford? No.
There we go. Well, so first I'll just say I agree with everything that that Representative Dewar just said. I'll add a few other things that I thought were pretty significant in the session. Education funding, we had a particular focus on increasing special education funding. We didn't get it as far as some would like, including me, but we took a big step forward, and we can come back and continue to work on that, and as well as pupil transportation. That's been another big issue for many school districts. More locally here, thank you for your leadership on so many of these issues. That, you know, makes it so much easier for us to advocate, having great partners here at the local level. It was certainly a joy to advocate for the Plymouth Housing Project. And I know just a ton of work went into that. The financing, putting that financing together for projects like that is incredibly complicated. And I was just very happy we were able to step up as partners to get that done. Kind of keeping an eye on other projects that are going on, the 405-522 interchange, making sure that's continuing to move forward, since that's a huge bottleneck here in this region. That's continuing to go forward, so anticipating that following its schedule, and continuing to work for expansion of transit, especially bus rapid transit options, to help people have more options to be able to get to work more easily. And I'll just mention one bill that was one of my favorites from the session. As chair of the Business Financial Services Gaming and Trade Committee, I deal with a lot of insurance issues, and had a bill around pet insurance. And I was educated about how important this is to many people, becoming very common, and we did not have much regulation around it. And the industry was able to come together and really work with consumer advocates to come up with some good baselines so we can have transparency, consumer protection in that industry. And that's a great thing. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So I was very happy to be able to work on that. So again, thank you for your work and your leadership, and happy to be a partner with you.
Do we have any questions or comments for Kate? Councilman Marshall.
Yes, hearty thank you for the Blake fix legislation. I think it absolutely strikes the right balance between community safety and individual safety, as well as rehabilitation and having to provide a structure for people who aren't able to make it through that rehabilitation. I think there's got to be some structure at the end of it. I think you guys totally struck the right balance. So thank you.
Councilmember Kugler?
I also want to say a big thank you to both of you. You know, I'm a newer council member, so I know all my colleagues know this better than I do. But it's not just like a one-time interaction, right? Like this process is very much takes time, takes effort, takes relationships. And I really appreciate the time that you took to get to know Kenmore, especially representing so many different cities as part of the first legislative district. I know you came and did like a bicycle tour around our city. You really took the time to understand our issues and what our wants and needs. And I just want to thank you for that. So thank you.
Councilmember File?
Thank you. I just want to thank you both for all you've done for Kenmore and our community. Meeting our top goals with climate action and affordable housing and safe routes. It's really important to our community. And I think that helps them feel heard as well. I look forward to many more years of working together with you. And I've had many years of working together with Senator Stanford and Olympia. And I'm excited about what will come in the future towards these other priorities and goals. So thank you for all you do for our community.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
I just want to thank you for your support for the city of Kenmore and Olympia, and in particular, your work for the environment and Senator Stanford. I know I reached out to you personally, but I really want to thank you for your bill, although it did not pass, for clean air during pollution times. It's critically important that we have leaders like both of you in Olympia and other places who are willing to take the chance to advocate for something that is so important and unfortunately challenging to pass. And I know that this is still on your radar here in Kenmore. Our air quality is something we really need your support on. So thank you so much for the actions that you've taken for our community.
Councilmember Shrubnik?
Yeah, I'll just chime in real briefly that you make us feel like we're your only city. And you really, hit the trifecta with the housing funding, the transportation funding, and the environmental, the climate action elements. So, those are just terrific. And I know that it wasn't easy to get any of those through. So really appreciate all the effort over several sessions in some cases. So really appreciate it.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes. I've been fortunate over the years to know Representative Dewar. She's, I considered a friend for a number of years. We've worked on a number of boards together. We worked on Sound Cities board together. She's been a tremendous help since she's been a representative, and hopefully we'll keep seeing her. It's really been a pleasure watching her grow since she got appointed and then won an election to the to the state. And she's been a pleasure to work with, only that we've just worked with her here the last year. So to get to work with her more and to getting to watch her grow more is going to be very enjoyable, I think, for us. She is very talented and she's been good to the district. And to see her work in conjunction with all of the people in her district has been fun, because I remember when she first came on, it was Bothell. It was Bothell. But she realized that Bothell really can't grow unless they work with the region. And so she's understood that more and more. And it's really a treat. So thank you, Davina. And you're always going to be Davina to me, since I've known you for so long. So thank you.
All right, well, with that, we're going to take a short break, have some cake, everybody can have more informal chit chat. We'll come back in probably 10, 15 minutes. Kenmore City Council will return to order. Next on the agenda is a presentation, the Sammamish River Regional Coordination Plan Capital Investment Strategy Project Update presented by Environmental Services Director Richard Sawyer, King County Flood Control District Executive Director Michelle Clark, King County Capital Project Manager Kate Accuse. And unfortunately, I heard from King County Councilmember Rod Dembowski that he was unable to make it tonight. So.
Hello, good evening, council. Thank you for having me here this evening. So I'd like to provide an update to council regarding the Sammamish River Capital Investment Strategy Project. And I will be speaking from the perspective as a partnering jurisdiction. But I'm also pleased to have with me this evening Kate Accuse. Close. And she is a capital project manager with King County. And I also have Michelle Clark, and she's the executive director with the King County Flood Control District. And I will have a few slides to kind of provide a summary and overview of the project. And then I would be happy to turn it over if either of you have any clarifying comments or additions you'd like to add, and then open up to the council for any questions, comments for any of the three of us. So the Sammamish River Capital Investment Strategy is it's a King County project, but it includes many regional partners, including cities along the Sammamish River, the tribes, state agencies, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the public. And the funding is provided by the King County Flood Control District, but it's King County implementing and managing the project. So they also have hired dedicated staff and consultants that are also working specifically on this project. And a quick summary of the Sammamish watershed. So as many of you probably are well aware, the Sammamish River is approximately 13 miles long, and it connects Lake Sammamish to Lake Washington with the mouth right here in the city of Kenmore. But it's a pretty good sized watershed, as the map before you shows. So the project has a few primary goals. And the first one I will speak to a little bit here, and then this is probably one that Kate could probably provide more clarifying information on afterwards if you have any questions. But the river was identified as a federal flood control project by the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and the King County Flood Control District oversees the maintenance and implementation of the flood control project's function. And King County is a service provider to the King County Flood Control District. And all of the work is performed as it was developed in a 1964 operations and maintenance manual by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So King County as a service provider will utilize this manual and inspect the river or the flood control project and do maintenance as it's outlined in this 1964 manual. Now, the manual was developed initially to focus on flooding issues and to protect agricultural land. And as you can imagine, over the decades, a lot of the laws and regulations through an environmental perspective have changed and modified over the years. So a lot of the science and methodology in this manual is outdated. For instance, some of the types of issues prescribed in the manual would say, if you have any vegetation growing along any of the banks, that should just be mowed down and be mowed grass. If you see beaver activity, you should exterminate the beavers and remove that habitat and get them out of there. Or if you have erosion or stability issues, you just armor that bank and to protect the river and its flood function. So obviously these things need to be addressed, and King County is working with the Army Corps of Engineers to get this manual updated to current laws and regulations. And I would point out that I think while this is a goal of this project, it's also kind of running parallel, and maybe Kate can speak to that a little bit more afterwards, but it definitely ties in with the goals that we want to establish that I'll address next, but it kind of also runs, I think it has some separate public engagement processes and things that will be associated just with that component of it. And then the next two bullets would be, and I would go into a little bit more on the next slide, but what we hope to do in this project is provide an updated multi-benefit capital investment and maintenance strategy that plans for and addresses current and future conditions. And then this will be accomplished by working with partners to kind of develop those and then an implementation strategy for those projects. And then with the overall goal to get some of these projects started. And then how are we achieving these goals? So I just touched on the update of the O&M manual, so I'm going to go a little bit more into these next bullets. One of the first steps, and again, this has been great from kind of a staff perspective as a partnering jurisdiction, is the efforts that King County has made to kind of bring everyone to the table. So we've had the chance to meet a few times, and at these meetings, we've had all of the river jurisdictions represented there. I believe that there was tribe representation there, Fish and Wildlife. I believe there were Army Corps personnel present. And so we all got to get in the same room and kind of look at a map and all the projects, that King County had identified over the previous 20 years. We could kind of clarify how those were going, update whether some of these projects were done that they weren't aware of, and then also bring to the table maybe some projects that we saw missing and get those included for consideration. So those have been some really great meetings. And I guess from Kenmore's perspective, what was really nice is there were several of the projects that we were working on were kind of already identified, but I had an opportunity to kind of talk about some of our priorities, such as dredging. We have some big sedimentation issues at the mouth of the Sammamish River, so making sure that that was being looked at and talked about. Managing aquatic weeds, not only in Kenmore, but through the entire 13-mile river corridor. So that was discussed. And then, there's a lot of habitat restoration potential that we have, both on some public lands and private lands in Kenmore that we really want to make sure are on the table and being looked at and being discussed. So I had an opportunity to make sure those were on there and moving forward through this process. And once we sat down and had an opportunity to work together, I think we identified approximately 100 projects throughout the entire river corridor. And as a group, we started discussing parameters to identify early action projects. So looking at things such as property ownership, were projects already, in the design phase, early on, late in the design phase? Have they had permits issued? Or have they not started the permit process? And what type of, depending on the type of project, what kind of Army Corps authorization might these projects need to move forward? So we went through the list and identified a lot of these parameters in order to establish these potential early action projects. And that's currently in progress still, but my understanding is I think we should be getting close to identifying some of those. And then one of the next steps after identifying early action projects is the group is working to develop a way to prioritize these projects. So when we get all these projects together, how can we compare them and prioritize these projects that would kind of, again, we're looking at the Sammamish River, the whole watershed. So we want to start identifying which projects would give us the most bang for our buck and get them on the top of the list. And one thing that I'm sure both Kate and Michelle would like me to emphasize too is that the project itself is not funding these specific projects. So this project will produce basically a final plan or report, and it will go through all of this effort in order to kind of define and identify these projects, provide some prioritization, and then, but it will help these projects be successful in the long run because we'll be developing these regional partnerships and gathering public support. So, you know, cities and state agencies and tribes are involved, but also there's a huge public component with all of this. So they're utilizing consultants to do some direct engagement with different communities. For instance, one of the consultants they have on board is Forterra. And so I've had a couple conversations with them specifically to identify manufactured home communities along the river and the ones that we have in the city of Kenmore so that they can develop some outreach and engagement to talk with them directly on what's important to them, what would they like to see improved on the river corridor. And then we're also utilizing kind of more broad public engagement, like the survey that was forwarded to you all a couple weeks ago. So the public can go online and then go through this multi-step survey, and which is designed to really kind of see where people are, how they use the river, and what they would like to see happen on the river, in addition to all the other groups that are involved in this project. As far as schedule goes, there's been a lot of behind the scenes action happening. I know Kate has been working on this for some time and staffing up and getting consultants in 2022, and then late 22 and early 2023, getting a lot of the jurisdictions together, and we've had a few meetings, and that effort will continue this year into next year, where I think the draft report will then go through King County's review and approval process, and hopefully get a final approval in late 2024, presuming. That hopeful, optimistic, and then start implementing projects that are identified through this plan and over the next 20 years. So that being said, again, you know, I've been able to participate in this as staff for the city of Kenmore, and it's been I think a really successful process so far. It's been great being in a room with our other Sammamish River neighbors and anyone involved with the river, and being able to have that face-to-face conversations with everyone and get this process moving forward. But I think, like I said, we have the opportunity tonight, particularly if you have any questions with Kate and Michelle here, to you know, get some higher level perspectives, or you can correct me if I said anything incorrect. So with that, I guess I'd first like to open up to Kate or Michelle if you've got any other remarks to follow me up, and then open up to council for questions, comments. Just one click.
Great, thank you so much, Kate Ackies with King County, and thank you so much for having us here tonight. And I just want to say thank you so much also for allowing Richard the time to come to these initial planning meetings, these regional level meetings. My understanding is, you know, it's due, and it's been very well attended. Every city sent people, the Corps has sent people. So just being able to start off the project with a list of everything that everybody is currently planning on working on is pretty neat. That kind of regional planning, it usually takes a lot more effort, and we managed to figure out a way to do it efficiently. So thank you to Richard for coming, and thank you for allowing him the time. Two minor things, the full river, in case folks don't know, the entire river is a flood control project. So all 13 miles. So anything you do is subject to Corps approval. And then county and the flood control district. I didn't know this when I started working for King County, but we are two separate governments. And so we do work as a service provider to the district. So any approval of this plan that will come from the flood control district, it will be the district's plan. We do have in our scope of work an implementation strategy. And we will be inviting partners to declare what types of things they might want to support with funding. So that will be coming later in the process. That's all I have, other than we just want to hear from you what your questions are. Michelle, do you have any?
Yeah, first I'm actually gonna brag on the work that Kate's done because she won't do that for herself, but this idea that actually King County Councilmember Rod Dombowski had of bringing all the jurisdictions, first of all, for the capital investment strategy as a whole, looking at the Sammamish River from beginning to end and figuring out what we should do on it. But also this idea of bringing together the cities to find out what everybody's doing is groundbreaking. So it was Rod's groundbreaking idea and Kate's the one that's brought it to fruition. To be able to, at such an early stage, find out not only what cities are doing, but what the county's doing, what nonprofits are doing, and what folks want to do is groundbreaking and exciting. And I think that what that's going to do is it's going to help all of the residents around the river really be able to engage in the river and bring the river into part of their daily life. The other thing that I just wanted to give another quick shout out for is this new idea of public engagement. And, you know, I'm always going around saying, I'm sick of hearing people who get paid to talk. I want to hear from the people who live there, right? So the idea of going in and working with Forterra to talk to folks in mobile homes, or the fact that Kate and her team have done this great amount of work to figure out what pockets of folks around the river don't speak English. And that we have some communities that are oral tradition, so that's not even gonna necessarily work to translate things into their language, but to bring together community navigators and other folks who can go out and find out what the people who use the river are looking for, what their barriers to access are, and ways that we can hopefully integrate all of these various types of daily living into both flood risk reduction, salmon habitat, recreation, all of these things. Is just super exciting. And that's sort of the underlying goal of the Sammamish Capital Investment Strategy.
All right, do we have questions? Deputy Mayor?
Well, first, I have to say, this is really exciting to see your presentation today, Richard. Thank you. Thorough, detailed. I'm always thankful for the work that you're doing for the environment in Kenmore, and that you've been able to work with Michelle and excuse me, I'm not remember, and Kate, forgive me, I didn't memorize quickly enough, but that you've been able to work together to come here today is amazing. I think the main thing that, I was looking at the schedule, so we're in the plan development, which is exciting. And I think the things I want to talk about are probably further down the line about like, how do we get our projects funded, right? Like we live in such a critical area. I guess just off the top of your head, my question would be, what would be the priority of work towards the crown of Lake Washington as you look at the river at the mouth of the Sammamish going into Lake Washington, where we have shallow, warm water that is in critical need of restoration for salmon and you know, other things, riparian zone. I'm curious about the priority there. And then in addition to our mobile home parks and other communities, we do have homeowners and apartment communities and businesses along the Sammamish. So I just wanted to check in to see how outreach to those groups will look. Thank you.
So I'll start, and then Kate, you will correct me where I'm wrong, because I'm sure I'm going to be wrong. So in 2020, the board, that's the King County council members, but sitting as the Board of Supervisors, passed a multi-benefit motion that said, hey, Michelle, flood risk reduction isn't enough. So do flood risk reduction and try to balance all of these other competing priorities. And habitat restoration, the environment, recreation, equity and social justice, tribal treaty rights, which actually is above that, right? Because the law's the law. How do we balance all of those things is part of that juggling act and the analysis that Kate and her team will be doing. That then my electeds will vote on a capital investment strategy. But I also want to point out that the flood district funds other ways to do habitat work, and that's with our cooperative watershed management grants. In 2014, we took over the funding for the RIAs, a large portion of that funding, and we doubled it to like $9 million a year. So I think you guys are what in RIA 7, 8, 8. So there is a list of projects that you have asked us to fund this year. We'll be starting to look at those at our executive committee next week. We also have our sub-regional opportunity fund where the city of Kenmore gets 10% of the tax revenue paid to the flood district back so that you guys can do whatever we're happy to say, what's your opportunity look like? So that you can do some of those projects yourselves, as well as flood risk reduction grants, where we partner with cities and homeowners associations and nonprofits to do other sorts of habitat and flood risk reduction work. So there's a lot of ways to get those priorities dealt with that aren't just in the capital investment strategy. And the capital investment strategy in and of itself, staff will do the work to try to balance those flood needs with habitat needs. And the capital investment strategies look at a worst first type of approach. But after the staff is done doing their analysis and presenting something, I would say that you guys all know how to weigh in on what legislative body turns out and votes on at the end. And we do like robust engagement of the cities. So when that time comes, I am sure both Richard and Rob are going to let you guys know when to weigh in on that process. I would also note that Kenmore being at the mouth of Lake Washington, you guys are a little bit special, right? And so not everybody gets to dredge, but we have funded projects in the past to help dredge the mouth of the Sammamish River into Lake Washington because of various things in your economy and other things that need to happen here. So there are opportunities outside the capital investment strategy. And then as for outreach, I just focused on the stuff that's new. We do a ton of outreach for homeowners, businesses, as well as apartment complexes, including not only the survey that Kate talked about, but working with your staff to get the word out. We have public meetings as the time comes so that people can weigh in on what's happening. One of the things that's most important, I think, in our work is finding out from the people on the ground whether or not we got it right.
Thank you. And I do have 2 follow-up questions.
Oh my goodness, okay.
When the time comes for dredging, we've had community members that have been incredibly concerned about the landfill and possible contaminants. Are there, I think I'm asking a bit of a, when that work is done, how are those contaminants controlled? Like the redisbursement of those contaminants. And then I'll just give you the second one, then I'll let you go. We've really had several community members who have expressed concern. It's like, how do we make progress without taking action? And how do we take action with the least harm, I think is the question. And I'm going to, given the nature of the work that you do, I'm confident that those things are taken under consideration, but I'm asking for a community because they've been asking about this. The second question that I have, as far as community engagement and getting funding, I think one of the most important things, this is just coming through my mind, you guys need money to do this work. And how is it, I'm just wondering, and maybe I'm kind of speaking to the community and you and wondering if our community, the more engaged and vocal our community is about supporting this and voting for people who are going to fund this work, that is incredibly important. So do you think like in, community engagement, organizing for the Sammamish River up and down the river is incredibly important, not only in Kenmore, but like boots on the ground, voices matter. And that's how and we need to actually start driving for more funding for our watershed, which our world is so incredibly dependent on. And how, you know, I wonder, how are we going to help engage our community to raise their voices for this incredibly high priority? We're a city, so sometimes people are like roads and other things are higher priority, but we're in a position where we can take action and be visionary with how we fund things too. So anyway, I just thought I'd ask about, we want to help you do that work. Do you want to see our community engaged and showing up and speaking up? And then the other question about the sediment and concerns that our community raised. That's it. I really am and Michelle, it's so nice to see you in person. By the way, I've been in a few of the King County Flood District meetings and it's great to see you. I'm really excited about this work and I'm not going to speak anymore because I can go on. So I'm just very thankful you're here.
Can I take the last one first? Yes, your community should get involved. So I used to work for a big community organizer. Former Councilmember Larry Gossett, I think community should get involved early, often, and always. And the way that I see people raise money, things get done, as people are continuing to beat the drumbeat and we're sharing information. And sometimes information is scary, but information is power. And information about what happens if we don't do this. So what are the risks to what makes our region if we don't do this and do it right now, because we're sort of in trouble. That's what I would say is the short answer, is that's what helps get people going. And the super short answer for contaminants, because I'm not an engineer, but we're going to do what we need to do to keep getting our permits. And there are regulations in place and we follow the best available science and we work hand in hand with ecology. And that's how we work to keep contaminants under control, because it's not just an issue here. It's an issue up and down our watersheds.
Thank you. And thank you for expressing the importance of the power of the people in this community to make things happen.
If I can add to that too, I mean, we're very fortunate here in this community. We did put out the survey and asked all of the cities to forward that survey to their networks. And I think Richard with the extra mile, because about half the respondents to our survey are from Kenmore. So you've definitely got staff supporting you in that goal. We are also sending a postcard about our survey to get the priorities of people in different communities. That's going to every single business owner, homeowners association, and residents along the shoreline, within 1,000 feet of the shoreline. And I think we identified 3,000 properties and then a few more taxpayers who are owning the property but out of state. So all of those folks will be getting notice about this. So that's one way that we'll be reaching those folks. And I think that the recent dredging of the Kenmore airstrip has a great example of how they dealt with sediment. They do coring, they check it out, and they check out what the ecology is, this in the background levels, what will the impact be. And the tribes didn't have a problem with that dredging, and it's fairly similar, and that would likely be worse kind of sediment in that area due to the industry that's there, as opposed to the mouth of this river, which has been primarily natural. So I don't think we'll have a big problem with that, but we definitely will do due diligence. And the Corps might actually, in terms of funding, to elaborate on that question a little bit, we're going to try to craft our implementation plan. So we will work with our project sponsor, the Flood Control District, to understand what their priorities are and what they would prioritize for funding. But we also want to make sure that we've laid out, this is a big habitat project, this is a big flood project, so that other partners can come in and understand that if I want to fund the highest scored habitat project, I'm going to fund this one. And we really wanted to do that on the river scale. Other things get prioritized. The worst first idea. There are some pretty big beaver holes on some of these places that cause porosity issues. Those are pretty bad conditions that the Corps is going to expect that we repair soon. In terms of the aquatic weeds, I worked with Richard on that. Were you on the integrated aquatic vegetation management plan? That was another regional effort that a lot of people gathered in on. Typically, we would want to do that upstream down. So there's just a lot of different reasons, whether it's worst first in terms of flood risk, or what is the logical thing to do in terms of an environmental problem. You're going to want to get upstream before you get downstream, but hopefully we could get it all in one fell swoop. Lots of different funding sources. Ecology has money for aquatic weed control. The Corps has money for dredging. The district has some funding for some things, but I'm not going to say tell them what their priorities are. And then, of course, your opportunity fund. The Willamore project on the Sammamish River, Redmond used their opportunity fund to help fund some design on that. There's a lot of funding sources. And I think that our implementation plan, we're going to try to make that really accessible so that people can see what the district will fund, but also can see all the opportunities. We're going to identify all of the grants that can match up to all the projects. And I think that will help a lot get things moving.
Thank you. It's really uplifting to have you here today and hear both of you speaking along with Richard. So I just really appreciate it.
And I would just add as well that the online survey has been extended through July 31st. So that is still going, and there's an opportunity for the public to do that survey. And the link was provided, should be with that agenda item.
Councilmember File?
Thank you. One of the things I've been thinking about in regards to our region and our area is additional sensor placement. The EPA has sensors upstream in Bothell, for example. It seems logical and scientifically valid to have a sensor near the mouth of our opening to Lake Washington or just beyond it, so we can track that difference as we are moving from location to location, just to help better balance what we're seeing across the sound and see where elements might be more local or otherwise. I understand this EPA has a good sensor program and offers updates. Are we going to be looking at that kind of layered in approach of looking at technology in our upgrades?
I can go ahead and just let you know that we are working with the Department of Ecology on this project, and the Washington Department of Ecology is doing their TMDL study of the river, and they'll be putting sensors in along the river corridor in a variety of places. And I'm happy to share with Richard the contact if he doesn't already have that. But they're following the same plan they had in 2015, but it just didn't get funded at that time. So they're looking to do that TMDL, and we are sharing resources such as our hydraulic river model and things like that. So we're trying to be really efficient here, and we're going to use their water quality data, and they're going to use our river model, trying not to repeat work, and hopefully we'll get that information. The county's also done a number of studies, dissolved oxygen and other studies along the river corridor. So there are some existing reports I can share with Richard for folks who are interested.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, not seeing anything else. Thank you so much for coming and for the presentation and the update. We really appreciate it.
For having us.
All right. Mr. City Manager, where's the fun?
So the Swamp Creek Habitat Restoration Project is still going strong after several years. This is an amazing phenomenon. And we want to do all we can to support it. And it's sponsored by the Snow King Watershed Council. And in particular, our very own Kenmore resident and planning commissioner, Tracy Banashinsky, leads this effort, and she faithfully makes these happen, I would say at least a couple times a month. Anyway, so there was one on Saturday at Swamp Creek, and this is one of the favorite parts about these volunteer efforts is what Tracy calls circle time. And she has it at the beginning and at the end. And this is at the end. And you can see all these volunteers, they've just been working for 3 hours, wrestling with blackberries. And so they're going around and sharing what they learned and what they experienced and anything else they wanted to share. It's a really fun part of the event. And there's just one more circle time picture. Yeah. And I think that's Paul, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Paul. So pretty pretty fun time. They say that, you know, time flies when you're having fun. Can you actually have fun yanking on blackberries? Well, the time flies, so it must be fun. So, and then I cannot overstate how amazing the 4th of July event was. This is a picture that I took at the event. Look at that beach. So glad we built that beach. And I think for me, this is just what it's all about. I just felt so good the entire time I was there, seeing all these people enjoy the 4th of July and celebrate our nation's birth. This picture in particular, I took because look at all those boats out there. There's dozens of boats out there that came to watch the fireworks. I think I'm gonna see that closest boat. I think that might be a canoe, maybe. They're pretty brave. So next picture, that's a picture. We had a little tiny little postage stamp near the beach as a family, and we took that picture. So really good time. We don't know how many people came, but it's in the thousands, maybe 5,000 people came. So it's our first fireworks celebration since 2019. So pretty cool. And then last but not least, we have our Love Where You Live community engagement project, where people build things with their hands to describe what they want for the city. And it's at every farmer's market. And there's just been so many cool things that have been built. Here's one where the resident was wanting to really emphasize our fish and our streams and how important they are. The little blocks, those little blocks, they represent coho and Chinook salmon. I think the green is Chinook and the red is coho, or vice versa. And what we do is we write notes to make sure we're capturing it, and then we're compiling it all in a database. And at the end of the summer or into the fall, we'll bring all the results of this too. But it's just a really fun way to engage a different part of the brain, a less adversarial part of the brain, and it's been a really fun effort so far.
All right, thank you very much. It's always good to be reminded of the fun stuff. Next up, public comments. We welcome our community members to the council's meeting. In this forum, the council does not engage or dialogue with the public. The primary role of the council is to listen. We'll hear from our on-site guests first, followed by our virtual guests. If you're online, please use the raise hand feature now if you wish to speak. All guests must address their comments to the mayor and city council. The clerk will acknowledge your request and call your name when it's your turn. Your time will start when we confirm we can hear you. Please state your name and city of residence for the record and keep your comments to the allotted time. We will not split your time with others or reset your time except by express approval of the presiding officer. Screen sharing is not allowed. You can submit materials to the council or clerk in advance. Please do not comment about pending development projects on which the council will make future decisions, as those are quasi judicial matters, and council members must limit their communications about such matters. If your topic is regarding the Veteran Seniors and Human Services levy ballot measure under the business agenda, please wait until we get to the business agenda to speak. You will be given a separate opportunity for public comment later in the evening. Thank you for taking the time to express your comments, and this meeting is being recorded. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 7 people signed up to speak on site. We'd like to take them in this order: Sarah Solom Hayashi, John Culver, Milton Curtis, Dakota Rash, Tracy Benesinski. And the last 2 are Elizabeth Mooney and Chris Olson. Ms. Hayashi?
Good evening, Council. I'm here to mostly represent Arts of Kenmore, as usual, of course. The last month and a half has been excessively stressful. Since presenting the last time I was here at the podium or at the table presenting presentation for the Urban Art Pride Art installation here at the steps. That project has not been stressful. That has been one of the most fantastic projects and the most fantastic community committees that we have ever worked with. I might be too close. That project was directly in line with the Arts of Kenmore's mission. It is directly in line with our grantors' mission for culture, ArtsWA. With ArtsWA, that's a state arts and culture. We actually got turned down for the second time in a row this a month and a half ago. And I asked why, and they said specifically because our programming is not diverse enough. This project would actually get us a lot of funding, as would the next one doing the sidewalk corners. As it is, it's been extremely, excessively stressful. I have fielded over 31 because I've only documented 31 phone calls in the last month and a half. Some of them have just been, most have been fantastic. Most are supportive. Some just want clarification. Others have been downright nasty, have had hate speech at me. And that's like straight at me. Not okay. I'm standing up for that. I am pulling up for our community. With that, I am here to address misleading rhetoric that began on May 22nd when in our presentation. These community-driven projects start with the For the Love of Kenmore workshops. They are privately contracted with the Arts of Kenmore. They are privately funded. The onus is not on the Arts of Kenmore nor the community committee to provide community input. That onus is on the city. It was the city's idea to do the steps instead of the crosswalk. Really ask the city to be a better partner, to stand up to hate speech, to stand up for the arts, and especially next Monday, to stand up for our Youth Poet Laureate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayashi.
Good evening, Council. John Culver, Kenmore. I'm here to offer support tonight. Yes, on a certain unnamed ballot proposition, and glad to see the CAP moving forward. Emphatic yes on Sammamish River Capital Project and habitat restoration. And I want to send some well-deserved kudos, brava and bravo to Council for doing the right thing with its 6-1 vote of support on the Pride Art at City Hall on the May 22nd meeting, and upheld again on the June 5th special meeting. I also greatly appreciated the feature of the Kenmore Top 4 News Blast, quoting Honorable Mayor Nigel Herbig here. The Kenmore City Council collectively supports this art installation, which celebrates Kenmore's diverse and inclusive community. Colorful new rainbow steps will spread this message that everyone is welcome in Kenmore and hate is not welcome here. Council has been clear in its commitment to this project, which is perfectly on par with projects that other cities in the region have been taking on. So again, thank you all. It means a lot. At the same time, since there's a faction that seems set on attacking this continually, I want to offer some important points of clarification because I think it sheds some light on the subject. First, around timing and the claim that the presentation materials were submitted too late to get a fair consideration. Anyone who watches the meeting can easily see these claims about notice and due process did not get raised at all on the May 22nd meeting. Council approved minutes plainly confirmed this, direct quote. Council members provided comments about their excitement and appreciation for the proposal. It was an easy 6-1 vote, and I encourage anyone interested to go back and watch the May 22nd meeting to witness it yourself. It's on City of Kenmore's YouTube 35-minute mark. Secondly, also on the timing of materials getting submitted, the truth again becomes illuminating. I've got an email here showing that the presentation was actually submitted to the city on Thursday, May 18th at 1 p.m. That's approximately 4.5 days prior to the vote. I have it on good authority. This was itself a friendly follow-up nudge after having submitted the presentation several weeks before the meeting, well in advance. I'll confirm this once I can fully verify it. And thirdly, we have to dispel the notion, as Sarah said, that Arts of Kenmore didn't solicit enough public input. This is easy. Public input is great, but that's not Arts of Kenmore's job. Perhaps my favorite part of this point, May 22nd council meeting did feature a public comment. And again, nobody commented on the project at all that night, despite it being the very first item of business and a dozen or so speakers. However you feel about it, I really appreciate everyone giving voice to their values. It's been very informative to hear where everyone is on this issue. I encourage everyone to make their voices heard on this. Heck, put it on a t-shirt. I'm running out of time. I'll hurry up. We do have one important ask of council. Public statements have been clear. You all support this, but here's one more thing to do. The Arts of Kenmore organization. We have seen the backlash, and frankly, they've been through way too much. We routinely feature their hard work with the beloved Love of Kenmore event. We need to make the Arts of Kenmore a full invested partner to continue this healthy relationship.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Culver.
stop there. Thanks, Al.
Milton Curtis.
Hello, I'm Milton Curtis, living at 6407 Northeast 202nd Street in Kenmore. I'm here to talk about transparency and your leadership related to the approval of the pride flag on the City Hall steps. I heard that the painting of the City Hall steps was delayed for safety reasons. I'm sorry that that was the reason for the delay. Threats and violence are not the way I deal with problems. In my opinion, it would have been ideal if the council had had a more proactive leadership role and delayed the painting until you got more citizen input from public hearing. That did not happen. Last time I spoke, I reviewed the timeline with the motion being uploaded to the City Council agenda the afternoon of Monday, May 22, regular council meeting, which didn't give the council or citizens time to prepare for the discussion. Then on Monday, June 5th, the motion was discussed at a special meeting, but no public comments were allowed. It looks like someone has an agenda and isn't interested in hearing from the citizens of Kenmore. At least someone could have asked for the motion to be postponed for further discussion at a later time when everyone could be more prepared. You're going through the motions of open government, but you are lacking in substance. In the June 5th special meeting, there was more concern that the issue was being discussed again than the lack of transparency and the lack of openness. It was sad to watch the proceedings. There was little interest in actually hearing from the citizens. Getting a proposal from the Kenmore Pride Committee, which in my mind is a political viewpoint group, does not seem like broad-based citizen input as claimed by the Arts of Kenmore. It seems like the council can't tell the difference between one topic group and more general citizen input. Some citizens mentioned that the process isn't important. At the highest level, law and order is a process issue. When you have no consistent process, you get chaos and anarchy. If citizens have a view that is important to them, such as odors from the asphalt plant or Lake Point, and they have only a few hours warning between the motion being uploaded and final approval without time for public consent, I think most of them would be upset and see the value of a transparent process. Council no longer represents me. How many others in Kenmore feel disenfranchised by your attitude that you know what is best for Kenmore without asking the citizens for input? As before, my request is for the council and city manager to put a hold on the painting and to schedule a public hearing to get a better idea of what the citizens of Kenmore actually want. We have time to hear from our citizens. If a majority of Kenmore citizens want the pride flag on the City Hall steps, then I will go away and you won't hear from me on this issue anymore. That is the democracy. You don't always get what you want, but at least we know everyone is playing by the same rules. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Good afternoon, Kenmore City Council and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Dakota Rash. I'm a resident of Lake Forest Park, but I grew up here in Kenmore. It's not democracy to claw back a vote that already happened. But it's also not often that you hear the rebuttal before the actual thing. So I will just spend my comment saying thank you all for your bravery in upholding this representative art in Kenmore. I think, way too often we hear so much about what's going wrong in the world. And I have definitely shared that with you. I've helped amplify the issues that come forth, and I think we're battered by it daily. It's wore down myself, it's wore down fellow climate activists, but doing things that shine a beacon of hope in this day and age are incredibly important. And I thank you all for continuing to commit to doing that and being brave in doing that. We need to continue to do that as we go forward into these ages of crisis, which are going to happen. We need to hold that torch high and bright so that the people that are feeling the impact of all the horrible things happening know where they can look to be safe and know where they can go to feel welcome. And we want that to be Kenmore. I also want to then, of course, comment to the Sammamish River project that came forward because ecological restoration is something that gives me hope. It is a sign of hope for me, the potential that nature has to come back when we let it. We are hearing, and here comes the unhappy part, we are hearing a lot of reports about things like the Amazon rainforest that is closer to the brink of ecological collapse, this thing that is the lungs of the planet than we thought. We are also hearing that it has the potential to come back way faster than we thought if we leave it alone. Maybe even help it come back and steward it come back. And so when you're looking at things like the Sammamish River and Kenmore's grid work of wetlands, consider the brave prospect of not just ecological restoration, but actually when it's appropriate, just giving the land back to nature, letting it come back and letting it restore itself because it has such amazing potential to do so. So go beyond thinking about what can we do to this patch of nature to maybe tootle around with the edges and plant a couple trees, just give it back. And maybe even steward it back. Take out the invasive species. Listen to the folks with green hearts who are talking to you about floodplain restoration and making sure that land that is at the mouth of the river isn't zoned for industrial or commercial use. It should be zoned for what nature is telling us needs to happen there. Because forests and rivers and wetlands are going to be what keep us alive in the incoming centuries, but only if we keep them alive. Thank you.
Tracy Benesinski, Elizabeth Mooney, and Chris Olson.
Tracy Bonashinsky, Kenmore. First, I have a thank you. Thank you to those who voted to install the Rainbow Steps Pride Art at City Hall. Seats of governmental power have never been neutral. They have always been people who are welcome in such places and people whose very existence those places have tried to erase. The Rainbow Steps Pride Art installation is the least we can do to show our LGBTQIA2S+ neighbors that we affirm and celebrate them as we do all in our community, and that we are committed to changing the culture that continues to threaten their safety and very existence. Particularly to the trans folks out there listening, you are fundamentally worthy of love and support and so needed in our community. I look forward to painting the step risers at City Hall with you all very soon. Now, a pivot to the Sammamish River, home of my loves, Pacific Northwest salmon. I am thrilled that King County has embarked on the process of updating their capital investment strategy for the Sammamish River. We have brought that river to a very sorry state. Between 1895 and 1936, those who put themselves in charge made significant modifications to the river, altering it to roughly the same alignment it takes today, straightening the meandering river controlled flooding, but reduced the river's length by more than half and removed its connection to floodplain wetlands. The loss of this connection reduced the Sammamish River Valley's ability to regulate warm water quality, retain waters in marshes and bogs during dry Puget Sound summers, and provide habitat to birds, fish, and wildlife. And turning the Sammamish River into flood conveyance, a daylighted pipe basically, we have utterly destroyed most of its beneficial natural ecological functioning. We've brought salmon to the brink of extinction, and we have made ourselves unwell. How can we be healthy when our river is not? Multiple projects that would go some way toward healing the Sammamish River have been identified in Kenmore. Very exciting. During the process of the capital investment strategy update and beyond, you will have opportunity to make significant decisions about how we steward the river for generations to come. And you will have a role to play in whether or not we are able to complete identified projects. I hope that you will do everything you can to promote a return to healthy ecological functioning for the Sammamish River. Floodplain over armor, a complex meandering channel over a straight chute, lush native vegetation on the banks over grass or gnarly invasives. It is exceedingly unlikely that we could ever restore this area to the state in which the first white settlers found it, but don't let that stop you from doing visionary work in this area. We can move forward making better choices about how we live with our environment, including the Sammamish River. When it comes to the competing priorities that are sure to emerge during the capital investment strategy update process, please hold treating the river as it was before 1895 as a model for the way we might one day live with it again in harmony. Thank you all so much for your support, for your service. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Elizabeth Mooney.
Hi, council and staff. Elizabeth Mooney, citizen of Kenmore. First of all, I want to really say I appreciate Richard Sawyer and all the work that's done about the Sammamish River and the staff. Thank you for supporting that in the environment. And I want to support Dakota Rash and Tracy Bonazinski's comments. They were extremely eloquent. As far as the rainbow steps, nobody should be sending hate mail to Sarah of Arts of Kenmore. And whatever the city can do to prevent that from happening, great. It's just rotten that anybody would do that. So watch our words and be supportive of each other and kind, and to our salmon and our streams. So I'm really encouraged by the city's participation in the Sammamish River CIS work plan. And I'm sure that you will find the citizens of Kenmore eager to participate in the preservation and improvement of one of the city's most natural and important assets. As important as this work is, though, it's important to remember that without an effective comprehensive plan that ensures the preservation of the riparian habitat and tributaries that feed into the river, we cannot ensure the health of the river. As we look at what you sent out, King County and its partners are identifying early action eligible projects that are near ready or easy to start for potential partnerships or possible funding opportunities in the near future, just suggesting that Streamfest 2016, sorry, what year am I in? 2023 is coming up on September 16th with PERC and Snohomish Watershed Council. And it'll be a great time to get more people interested. And we would be able to promote this great effort by the city to do important habitat protection restoration. So looking forward to helping work on that with you and other citizens. Also on conducting intensive community engagement to inform the public about the project, gathering input and utilizing it during the development of the CIS. Yes, I know, and thank you, Richard Sawyer, for mentioning the extension. The deadline is July 31st. Thank you for mentioning this to some of us who own property or care about the Sammamish River. Could you possibly extend the deadline? Not because we don't care about the Sammamish, but good grief, a lot of us have been gone for 2 weeks chasing grandchildren, and I really need to have extra time and to get the message out to neighbors that we have this opportunity. And if it would help to go door or on canoes even and tell people, hey, put out little flyers on people's shoreline, I would be happy to do that in my little canoe, happy to work with people. So let's start a stewardship program, where landowners and friends of the Sammamish can apply for project funding and report on their projects that might include water quality testing. Is it safe for swimming? Working with upstream Sammamish landowners, riparian planting, removal of riprap, getting rid of septic systems. If it's not safe to swim for people.
Thank you, Ms. Mooney.
Bye.
Chris Olson.
Hello, I'm Chris Olson. I'm a resident of Kenmore. Sorry, I just had to take my jacket off. Appear a little bit more professional. I'm going to just second everything that they have said about the CIS project on the Sammamish River. It's important that we continue to, I guess, rehabilitate that river after the damage that was done to it. I work in a industry and part of a field where that was common practice for a long time. It was going in and straightening out rivers. And it was generally done for freight to make things easier to move up and down a river. But when you shorten rivers like that, that increases flow, which increases rates of erosion. I want to say it's like 10-fold or 100-fold increase in urban areas as a result of practices like this. Going back and on street projects or other projects, working to put in low impact development style water treatment facilities can be very effective approach to help reduce sedimentation going off into the river, which would in turn actually reduce the numbers of times that we need to dredge that opening, which is not only good for limiting potential exposures to contaminants that have settled out, but also good monetarily because it's expensive to dredge things out. Regardless, I'm mostly here because I've just seen, I guess, a number of things that have gotten to me today, and this might not be the right forum for that. But back with the missing middle conversation that's been going on now for a year, I've just seen some comments that I think are kind of missing the point, that call this process undemocratic or communist. even. And one of the things that I think is interesting about that is that we're talking about opening up property rights with things like Missing Middle. We're talking about increasing people's ability to use their land in more effective ways. We're talking about allowing people to take a piece of property, turn it into 3 or 4 homes where there's currently 1. And we're talking about allowing people who don't necessarily have as much money. They're not saying low income, because Missing Middle is not low income housing. It's very, very different from that. But people who are maybe they have a family and an apartment isn't right for them, but a single family home isn't right either. And it gives them a place to live that they can afford in these areas. I would count myself in that group. So I think it's important that we provide those housing options and don't pretend that increasing density in the downtown core while maintaining single family on the exterior is the only approach, because that's the approach we've been taking. That is the current status quo, and to pretend that that is not the status quo is frankly a lie, or misinformed at a minimum. Maybe not a lie, maybe it's not intentional. As far as the Pride steps, I was a little dismayed not to see that. I didn't say anything on it because I just assumed it would occur. To me, you can paint over steps. It's not a big deal. We have a representational democracy for a reason. Not everyone can vote on everything.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mayor Herbeck, we do have some virtual guests wishing to speak. If you're online and you'd like to speak, this is the time to raise your hand, but we will start with David Dorian, followed by Stacy Valenzuela. David Dorian, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Excellent. David Dorian, I'm a resident of Kenmore. Mayor and council members, there's a lot of great things on the agenda tonight. I'm going to focus my comment, though, on the Pride artwork at City Hall. I recently returned from travel overseas, and 2 things during my vacation made me think about the artwork and the disinformation that's being directed at it. First, as I was enjoying a morning coffee at a location in the United Kingdom, I looked up and I saw a Progress Pride flag fluttering in the breeze. Based on some of what you've heard in recent council meetings, you might assume that I was visiting a hotbed of leftist radicalism. Far from it. I was, in fact, visiting the British Library, the National Library of the UK, which is a function of a government ministry. And let's remember, the government in the UK has been centre-right in ideology for over a decade. So why does the British Library fly the Pride flag? Has there been a leftist takeover by deep state operatives? No. The library states that it does so to assert that its services are genuinely for everyone. I found it interesting that an agency of a centre-right government would describe the Progress Pride flag as sharing this message, as it aligns exactly with what supporters of the artwork have been sharing with council here. Even though there is a wide spectrum of different political ideologies represented between the UK government and Kenmore art lovers, the message of inclusion is the same because it transcends politics. I then returned to my hotel across the street from the library, which is part of the UK's largest hotel brand. At the entrance to the hotel, they had artwork of the Progress Pride flag motif within the word pride as part of a statement, rest easy and full of pride. Is the largest hotel chain in the UK part of an anti-religious conspiracy? Are they buying up churches to turn into hotels? No, of course not. Like the library, the hotel management explained why they show the Pride-inspired artwork. We celebrate difference in all the communities we serve, inclusive of race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, and disability. What does all this have to do with Kenmore? As a city in the United States, are examples from elsewhere redundant, especially in the light of recent Supreme Court rulings? Well, no. Although there might be a good deal of confusion now when it comes to businesses that create expressive content with regard to a hotel chain and to government services, US and Washington state law remains clear. People who identify as LGBTQ+ should expect equal access to services. What better way to show respect for the ideals of the US Constitution than by using government speech to support a persistent symbol of inclusion for those who were once excluded and that some would like to exclude again? As the examples from my UK vacation show, the concept of using a pride motif to achieve this is neither extreme nor generally interpreted as exclusionary to other groups. Kenmore City Council has the right to use government speech to share a message of inclusion to residents living their lives as their authentic selves, and to do so using a symbol that is recognized the world over as transcending politics to focus on acceptance and kindness. Thank you for your continued support and leadership on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Dorian. Stacy Valenzuela.
Stacy Valenzuela, Kenmore. Let me get this right out of the way. It's a private artwork. It should not be on public property. There could be neutral property. And I agree with Milton and several other residents that there should be a vote from the public of whether or not they want this flag on their steps, because it is more permanent than temporary. In other words, we see that the efforts of just a few staff, affordable housing development can and is happening in Kenmore. Imagine what can happen if staff was supporting the top priorities of our council, affordable housing and climate change, following their direction and the residents' concerns, the will of the people. Kenmore's CAP plan needs to include industry in the huge contributor of pollution, the asphalt and concrete plants. After 15 years, residents' odor and petroleum soot complaints from the asphalt plant are finally being addressed, and it's not just steam. Thank you, Senator Derrick, for introducing Bill 5535, which would allow PSCAA to require asphalt plants, which I testified on, and it would stop production emissions on burn ban days. We need to support this bill to pass. We need Kenmore, as well as surrounding cities, comprehensive plans to concentrate on remediation toxins on MOTCA sites. We need to also protect our waterways, air, wetlands, public health from chemical toxins. We need to restore our creeks and natural shoreline. We need pollution, growth management, and shoreline master board members without conflict of special interest. We need those suppressing bullying and belittling at all levels reported and held accountable. We are still suffering inflation and high rent increases in the aftermath of the pandemic, with many struggling to make ends meet. The city already overpaid for public works property. Let's stop there. The legislation released grants for infrastructure and more recently seniors. We need these seniors to get the money to their hands. The mobile home park that I live in is failing to follow RCW and pricing out and evicting our senior homeowners monthly. This is increasing the homelessness. We know and appreciate your efforts on all these issues for our residents' behalf and hope you continue to listen and represent the will of the people. I again want to express the dire situation at the mobile home park communities. My neighbors receive $500 to $1,500 fixed income, cannot pay the increased rent August 1st. Some are leaving, abandoning homes. Some will face eviction. Some contemplating harming themselves. Some foregoing medications and food. Please, we shared and exhausted all avenues of help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valenzuela. Victoria Grayland, followed by Janet Hayes. Vicki Grayland, can you hear us? Vicki Grayland, can you hear us? We'll move on to Janet Hayes. Janet Hayes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Janet Hayes and I'm a resident of Kenmore since 1998. Even after commenting, my concern tonight is still regarding the dredging and the determination of non-significance that the city would like to have Glacier Northwest have. I'm concerned you do not have all of the information needed, you, the city, to issue this permit of non-significance. What is needed is comprehensive testing of this part of the lake that harbors a wharf that is used for ingress and egress of tugs and barges laden with product for the cement and asphalt plants. We need this testing because we have never found the source of dioxins found at Harbor Village Marina, North Lake Marina, and in the federal Kenmore Navigation Channel. We need testing because dredge soils, 10,000 cubic yards from Hog Canal, were brought to the Pioneer Towing property in 2009, 2010. It was dumped uncovered on an unlined landfill, Lake Point, because we need testing because this was moved to another spot on the property and mixed with topsoil to be sold to the public. It is next to the shoreline of the Sammamish River, and we need testing because we have a new park that cannot be a swimming park. The sediment in the lake south of its shoreline, federal Kenmore Navigation Channel, tested in exceedances of dioxin. We need testing because when the 520 bridge cement rubble from the old bridge was brought by tug and barge and removed to trucks over the berthing channel, even while the city knew there was exceedances of arsenic in the debris. This led to 3 successful Clean Water Act violations, but no testing. In 2002, a consent decree was created to stop pollution on this property and to clean it up. It did not stop the pollution. It was continued and has gotten bigger and more toxic. Always escaping testing. Please do the right thing. I would think the city would have enough wrongdoings on this property to be able to insist on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Vicky Grayland, we're moving back to you. Can you hear us? Vicky Grayland? Vicky Grayland, can you hear us? One last time, Vicky Grayland, can you hear us? Mayor Herbeck, at this point, we have no additional online comments.
All right. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Kugler,
Yes.
Councilmember Shrubnik,
Yes.
Mayor Herbeck,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane,
Yes.
Councilmember File,
Yes.
unanimous consent.
Next on the agenda is the business agenda. First and only item is King County Proposition Number 1, the Veteran Senior and Human Services Levy. We are going to have a presentation by Kelly Ryder, Chief of Staff, and Penny Lipsue, Government Relations Manager from the King County Department of Community and Human Services. Then we'll have questions and comments from council members, and then there will be a special public comment period.
Good evening, Mayor Herbeck and members of the council. Kelly Ryder, currently serving as Deputy Director for the King County Department of Community and Human Services, and joined here by my colleague.
Hello. Good evening, council. Hi, city staff. Thank you so much for having us. We are very happy to be here to talk about the renewal for the Veteran Seniors and Human Services Levy, also known as VSHSL.
Just one quick note, I do want to just let folks know we are here in our official King County capacity. So we are here to answer factual questions and happy to provide that context from our King County positions.
So since being introduced in 2005, the VSHSL has been approved by voters 3 times. We're currently looking at the 4th iteration of this levy. The executive proposed this version as a straight renewal from what voters approved in 2017. So that means it's a 10 cent per $1,000 of assessed property value as the rate. And so for Kenmore, the estimated median impact is about $19 more than what residents are currently paying right now, which is $72 a year, and that will be an increase to $91 a year. For context, the countywide median estimated payment would be $83 a year, so that's up $17 from this year's median payment of $66 a year. A key purpose of this levy is to support and strengthen essential services across our region. If renewed, this levy will continue to fund community-driven programming and investments in these 4 key areas. The first being veterans, service members and their families. The second, older adults and their caregivers, so seniors, anyone who's over 55. The third is resilient communities. So those are communities who experience harm from structural forms of oppression. And the fourth, newer funding strategy here in this version is the regional impact initiatives. And so what that is to fund systemic responses to issues that affect all 3 of these populations. So that looks like technical assistance and capacity building, as well as workforce investments, particularly for the nonprofit workforce, to ensure quality services. And I'll pass it over to Kelly to talk about some highlights.
Great. So looking back over the last 6 years of the levy's work, you can see here on the slide, the levy has served over 185,000 individuals since being renewed in 2018. That includes 27,000 veterans, 100,000 seniors, and you can do the math on the remaining population. The Veterans Levy has been very diverse in the programming and the organizations that it has invested in. You'll see here 300 programs, 150 plus community-based organizations allows us to invest in a broad diversity of organizations to ensure tailored delivery of services. Here are just a couple of highlights of what the levy has been able to accomplish over the last 6 years, building 1,200 units of affordable housing and 198 shelter beds, contributing to a 40% reduction in veteran homelessness through the investments that we've made both in specific housing buildings as well as in veteran programming. 39 senior centers are now funded that back in 2017 faced a huge reduction of funding as philanthropy withdrew investments. And then you can see here a note about the diverse array of supports the levy has been able to create over the last 3 years by being flexible and adapting to the COVID pandemic. A couple more notes. Folks may be familiar with our King County Veterans Program that provides a one-stop shop access to services for all veterans and service members and their families. The thing about the King County Veterans Program is it takes what our federal, VA, and even state veterans benefits provide, and it goes an extra layer. So for those veterans that may not be eligible for veterans benefits from the federal or state government because of their service limitations, they are still able to access the King County Veterans Program if they have served 1 day in the military. In addition, when you go into our King County Veterans Program, one of which is now located in Northgate, relocated here over the last 6 years, you can access a variety of services. So whether that is a need to understand and get access to your Veterans Affairs benefits, or whether it is simply trying to figure out where you're going to stay tonight because you're at risk of eviction, veterans and their families can walk in or call into our Veterans Program and be connected immediately with a case manager. You'll see here also our investment in the DV Hope Line, a 24-hour line for any survivor of domestic violence to be able to call and immediately gain access to a worker to be able to help them understand what their options are to be able to seek care and seek that connection to be able to help them in their moment of crisis. Shout out here at the top to the collaborative case management structure, something that we've been able to put in place here over the last few years. What the King County Veterans Program identified is that many veterans get access to federal housing benefits, but using those housing benefits, especially in our region, becomes very difficult. And so the King County Veterans Program was able to fund the collaborative case management provider structure that ensures that when a veteran gets access to a federal housing benefit, they can connect with a case manager who can ensure that they can quickly reach out to private rental housing, understand how to use their benefits, and through that structure that's now gained a lot of national attention as an ability to really quickly deploy these federal benefits, they can more quickly gain access to immediate housing. We often get asked about the specific impact and results of our levies. And so these are just a couple of notes on the high level results. We do measure based on how much was done, how well it was done, and how folks that participate in our levy programming are better off. These are a couple of indicators that we use across our result areas. As a result of that measurement, performance measurement and evaluation, we have created now our dashboard for the Veterans, Seniors and Human Services Levy. For folks that are more comfortable with a QR code, you can actually tag that here and it will take you to a variety of data that we have invested in, all to make sure that folks have at their fingertips an understanding of how money is spent, who is being served, and how well they are being served. Finally, just a couple of notes in our impacts here, right here in North King County. Over the last levy, we've been able to contribute to 130 units of new affordable and supportive housing. That includes investments at the Shoreline 198th supportive housing modular construction building, investments in the Shoreline Veterans Center, investments in the Bothell adult family homes that will soon be constructed. I mentioned the relocation to the King County Veterans Program there at the Northgate office, actually just right across the street from the Northgate Light Rail Station. We've also been able to invest in the North Shore Senior Hub that provides a food pantry as well as access to several other services. And you can see here that the Kenmore Senior Center is part of that hub. In addition to the Indian American Community Services Senior Center work that provides pop-up community centers, including meals, healthy activities, culturally authentic programming, all targeted to serve the Asian Indian American seniors. Couple notes on the community engagement that we've done in order to develop the King County Veterans, Seniors and Human Services Levy proposal that will be on ballots for August 1st. And finally, a couple of high notes on what the levy will be able to do. The levy proposed at 10 cents, as Penny noted, is structured to be a renewal. So it is not a significant expansion of existing programs. It does, however, commit to ensuring those existing programs can be delivered, which means being able to expand funding to account for inflation, as well as wage increases that need to be done in order to ensure we can continue to hire and recruit the human services workforce. You'll see here specific targeted new funding is being proposed by the executive to fund more permanent supportive housing operations to ensure that we can continue to serve folks that are currently in supportive housing, as well as doubling funding for senior centers across the region, maintaining access to counseling and mental health supports, and being able to increase access to programming for survivors of gender-based violence.
And as you can see here is a snapshot of the timeline of where we're at with the VSHSL. Last year, there was a lot of community engagement efforts to assess what's been working well, what hasn't been working well, a lot of the measurements that Kelly spoke on to inform our VSHSL assessment report. Earlier this year, the executive transmitted the ballot measure ordinance, and we continued to engage community through VSHSL summits. And now, as you can see, it will be on the ballot for August 1st. And then if approved, we will transmit a VSHSL implementation plan for further implementation in 2024. And that is our overview of the VSHSL renewal. Any questions from anyone?
Questions? Comments? Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation. We really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come here and give us that. Next, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Baker.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Good to see you
Councilmember
again,
Baker.
Ryder. What is the current rate? And what will the new rate be?
8.1 cents is the existing millage rate, and the rate is proposed to be at 10 cents, which is the rate that was proposed and adopted in 2017.
Okay. Between 8 and, what was that?
8.1 is the current
And
rate,
10.3?
and the new rate would go back to 10 cents. But it'd be a 1.9 cent increase
Okay.
to existing taxes, which is penny shared. It would be $17 more per year across the region. $19 is the estimated increase here in Kenmore.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I was beginning to worry that our presentation wasn't as exciting as the flood control district.
Any other
Much
questions?
for having us.
Your presentations are always exciting.
Councilor File?
Just want to thank you for this presentation. It's very timely. Both our seniors and our veterans families are going through a great stage of crisis. And unfortunately, this funding won't be there soon enough to grasp what's happening across our Puget Sound region and state. So I wish we could wave a magic wand and make it happen tomorrow. But I'm just really grateful for this work and that it will help serve our communities and will help uplift our communities and make for a brighter tomorrow and for better healthy outcomes. So thank you.
Any further questions? Before we go to the public hearing. All right, thank you very much. At this time, pursuant to RCW 42.17a.555(1), the Kenmore City Council will take comments from members of the public about the King County Proposition Number 1, Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy. The public may provide comment during this time to share support or opposition. If you're in person, please make sure you've signed up at the entrance. If you wish to speak, if you're joining virtually, please use the raise hand feature now. We'll begin with on-site public comments followed by virtual comments. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Thank you for taking the time to express your comments. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Herbig. We have one person wishing to speak on site, Pasha Mohajer Jaspi.
Mr.
Councilmember.
For the head of our Kenmore Senior Center speaks, could we give her 3 minutes of time? It is 3. Could we give her 4? Let her get her story out?
We have to follow what everybody has to have the same amount of time, so we have to keep people to
Okay,
3
I'd
minutes.
just like to hear more from our senior center person, but okay, fine.
I appreciate it, but rules
Fine.
are rules.
Please, fine. And bravo on pronouncing my name. Hi, Kenmore City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you on behalf of the Kenmore Senior Center for your support and continuous and increased funding of the work that we're doing. I'm here tonight to encourage you all to endorse this levy. In my reading and studying about it, one of the things that's really emphasized so strongly is the importance of social connections and maintaining those for seniors. And I see it every day, and I will say that a couple of people in the past year or so have come into my office and at the senior center, which is located in Rhododendron Park. A lot of people don't know where we are. We're the little magical cottage in Rhododendron Park, and said, I was thinking last night about killing myself. And it's like, well, you're in the right place. We're going to get you busy. We're going to make some friends. And those people have turned their lives around. The pandemic, as we know, did a number on mental health for sure. And seniors, not tech savvy, don't have a lot of ways to get resources anymore unless they go buy a bulletin board somewhere. So today, Monday, we were so busy. Some of you have been there, it's like grandma's house. We were so busy you could hardly move in the building. And so has been my vision since I started on the job 2 years ago, is to make that place a little popcorn popper every day of just being at our capacity, laughter, fun, and connections. And what I like to hear from my office is, okay, so dinner on Thursday night. So they're making friends outside of the reason that the activity is there. So to also say that July is our anniversary of the beginning of our food pantry. We started the Kenmore Senior Center Community Food Pantry in July 2021, and we've had over 1,050 visits to our food pantry in that time. We've made a lot of impact in the community, and our wonderful Kenmore Grocery Outlet is our partner. They do a food drive every year in July. And so the Kenmore Food Pantry is going to be a beneficiary of all the food. If you shop at Grocery Outlet, make a donation of cash or food, that comes to us. So again, I would like to encourage the council to support this levy. It's doing a lot of important work right here in our own backyard. Thank you.
Mayor Herbeck, we do have some online guests wishing to speak. Oh, is Ms. Mooney approaching the podium? Mayor Herbeck, will you allow another on-site comment?
Yeah, you'll just need to, Ms. Mooney, you'll need to sign up after comment.
Hi, Elizabeth Mooney, resident of Kenmore, and I really support Pasha's comments to endorse the levy. I have heard a lot of my friends who are retired, who are finding that Kenmore is too expensive to live in and hoping for the opportunity to stay in our community, you know, with our friends. So I really expect that you're all going to vote for this. But in case you need to know from us, yes, support it. And that's it. I had a question, but I didn't know how to ask it. But one thing that I have also heard about is the mobile home park owners across the country. And I heard Stacy Valenzuela talking about it tonight. That is not fair. And we don't want to lose the people. Those are stewards of Sammamish River, by the way, over on that side. And I know some of the people live in the mobile home park over by Safeway. I've heard more about what's happening over the Sammamish River Park. But I don't want to lose those mobile home communities. And if for any reason this levy can help out people who are good human beings living in the mobile home parks while their rent is going up, you know, it's probably not the right levy, but it did trigger a question that I had. Thank you. Support it, endorse it.
Thank you, Ms. Mooney. We have 3 people on site or online that would like to speak. Heidi Shepard, followed by Stacy Valenzuela and Nathan Phillips. Ms. Shepard?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Herbeck and council members and staff. My name is Heidi Shepard, a resident of Shoreline, and I'm representing NUSA, the North Urban Human Services Alliance. Tonight, I also want to urge you to endorse the renewal of King County Prop 1, otherwise known as the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy, which is on the ballot for August 1st. The 5 cities of North King County have made real progress in meeting the unmet needs of our residents. And in many cases, this also represents a significant budgetary commitment. Yet the needs increase, as we've heard tonight. We are very aware of the budget limitations of all of our North King County cities. This levy is the largest source of financial support for human services for all throughout King County. And endorsing this levy so that it passes is critical if we are to have the means to meet the basic needs of our communities. The levy renewal will continue to support specific populations like veterans and seniors, and will also address housing security that we've just heard about, financial stability, and access to nutritious and affordable food. We need the levy to pass so that we can support the healthy communities that all of us treasure in North King County. Thank you very, very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. Stacy Valenzuela.
Good evening, Stacy Valenzuela from Kenmore. The VSHSL has many great programs. However, funding goes to the veterans, their families, and senior centers. Rent or financial support does not reach directly into the senior hands or residents of the mobile home communities. Yes, they are given food, mobile bank information. They are given some help here and there, but I think the name should be changed to Senior Center or increase what is given to the actual seniors. The seniors are most likely to be unhoused these days. And I see it almost every day in our neighborhoods as the investors are purchasing the mobile home communities, failing to follow RCWs, and instantly increasing the lot rent to price out the seniors, evict them, and take over their homes so that they can resell it and make thousands of dollars on them. Again, it's dire situation when our senior neighbors, which I have been sharing for 5 years now, where to find food, where to get rent money, where to help with their medications, where to help with doctor appointments. And they still, because of this recent investor corporations, are being priced out when they have lived unsubsidized in their meager little environment and community within the community for years. We need you to step up. If this levy passes, we need more money to reach the hands and to save the senior citizens in the mobile home communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valenzuela. Nathan Phillips.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Thanks for having us this evening. My name is Nathan Phillips. I'm the CEO of the North Shore Senior Center, and I want to thank everyone tonight who's been speaking in favor of the levy renewal. You heard my colleague Pasha talk about how what a huge impact that Kenmore Senior Center has in the community. And I want you all to know we're able to do that in Kenmore by braiding different funding sources together to make it possible. And the VSHSL is really a vital part of that braid, and we couldn't do it without that piece. But I also want to kind of step up a level to look at the region that North Shore Senior Center serves. We're able to provide services in the North Shore region like mental health supports, referral programs, some cash assistance programs that Ms. Valenzuela just spoke about, accessible transportation services, volunteer mobilization, fitness, health, and strength and balance programs to residents from everywhere from Lake Forest Park and Kenmore to Woodinville and Kirkland and everywhere in between. And as Kelly Ryder noted, those VSHL funds that are an important part of that, they've been really flexible, which has allowed us to adapt to emergent needs in the community. And that's particularly helpful when you're doing things like trying to address a global pandemic. So at the North Shore Senior Center, we braid together these resources to make sure the needs of the 4,000 seniors we serve every year are addressed. And again, the VSHL dollars are a really important part of that braid. In fact, VSHL dollars make up about 15% of our organizational revenue. But I also want to pull back even one bigger level. As Heidi Shepard noted, the VSHSL funds programs and services throughout the community and the county that our neighbors depend on, from housing efforts to veterans programs, domestic violence services, counseling programs. The VSHSL really props up the network of services that makes cities like Kenmore and King County great places to live. So on behalf of the board and the volunteers at the North Shore Senior Center, we hope you will join us in supporting the VSHSL renewal. And thank you all for what you do for the community as well. Thank you.
Mayor Herberg, that concludes our public comment.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 23-401, showing support for King County Proposition number 1.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Shrubnik.
Yes.
Councilmember File.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane.
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
Yes.
Councilmember Kugler.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
Mayor Herberg.
Yes.
The vote is unanimous.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is staff reports. Land acknowledgement update presented by Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Consultant Shannon Kelly Ray.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Good. Before we begin, let's honor the original custodians of this land. with the traditional Lashut Seed greeting, which is the first language to be spoken in this area. Echof Hakshir Ubitsia. Hello, it's good to see you. Good evening, council members and all those present today. We're gathered here on the ancestral lands, which includes the Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Sauk-Suatal, Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Tulalip, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and various other tribes were part of the Coast Salish Peoples tribes. I wanted to make sure that we express our deepest respect for this process, for the tribal communities, the First Nation people, for their enduring stewardship of this land. And as we engage in today's discussions, let's keep in mind our individual and collective responsibility to respect and uphold the sacred relationship with the land and its original caretakers. It's taken a lot to get to where we are today, to be prepared to begin to stakeholder this process with the council, with the DEIA Advisory Committee and the City Manager's Office. It's taken a lot of time, engagement, research, resourcing, and just back and forth to make ourselves available on the timeline of the tribal communities. So I want to again just thank those folks who have offered their assistance, their guidance, resources, and information to develop this land acknowledgement and statement of recognition and honor. And that would be the Tulalip tribe, the Duwamish tribe, the Stillaguamish tribe, the Snoqualmie tribe, the Sauk-Suatal tribe, the Coast Salish Gathering, United Indians of all tribes, the Washington State Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, the University of Washington American Indian Studies Department, the University of Washington Digital Library, Native Land Digital, which is a Canadian nonprofit of Indigenous First Nation people, the Kenmore Heritage Society, JSTOR, which is Journal Storage, and of course the Burke Museum. Without the help and assistance, guidance, wisdom, collaboration, and partnership, we wouldn't have the information in terms of the land acknowledgement that we have today. So let me first say that many people over these last several years have endeavored to create a land acknowledgement statement of their own, whether public, private, corporate, nonprofit, schools, municipalities at all levels. Many across this nation and especially across this region have been reaching out to tribal communities to get guidance, wisdom, and assistance. Many of the tribes are made up of members who enrolled with the tribes. They're both federally recognized and non-federally recognized. Many of them have banded and come together with other tribes like the Sauk-Suatal, who are only several hundred recognized, registered and strong, but they've banded together. And so it's been difficult. It's been very difficult to do a lot of the stakeholder and research for this project, especially that so many people are reaching out to essentially offices that are non-offices in many instances, that aren't staff, but are by paid folks, but volunteers that are members of the tribe, upholding their culture, their community, and their way of life. And so I wanted to be able to state that just as a sign of incredible gratitude, humility, and deep appreciation for the assistance and guidance and wisdom that we did get. In recognition of their own land acknowledgement statements and how they wanted us to be able to use those, combine those together to create what we have today, the land acknowledgement, given all of their insights, contribution, guidance, and wisdom, is: we acknowledge that the city of Kenmore is situated upon the ancestral lands of the Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Sauk-Suatal, Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Tulalip, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other tribes who are part of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize and express our deepest respect for their enduring stewardship and profound relationship with this land, which they have cherished and protected since time immemorial. We honor the First Peoples, acknowledge their vibrant cultures, and commit ourselves to learning from their wisdom in our journey to promote justice equity, and mutual understanding. We pledge to stand alongside these communities in acknowledging past injustices and working towards a future that respects and celebrates the diverse heritage of this land. That is the land acknowledgement that I, through these tribal communities and their volunteers, their staff, and their resources, I'd like to honor them and offer to you for consideration. I'll be submitting that along with an extended recognition and honoring statement with all of our sources to City Manager Carl Lindsay and his staff to be able to present to the DEIA Advisory Committee, and then to the council for your consideration at your July meeting.
Do we have any questions? No, I'm not seeing any questions or comments, but I do want to thank you for your continued work on this. It's important that we get this right, so I really appreciate the work that's being put in. So thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is another staff report, Climate Action Element Comprehensive Plan Amendments Update and Climate Action Plan Implementation Update presented by Environmental Services Director Richard Sawyer and Climate Action Plan Program Manager Nina Rasmussen. Mr. Sawyer.
Hello, good evening again, Mayor, City Council. Yeah, so we'd like to provide council an update this evening on what we've been working on with Climate Action Plan implementation, and also some work we've been doing with the Planning Commission on developing a climate action element for a comprehensive plan update. And I have Nina Rasmussen with me this evening, our new Climate Action Plan Program Manager. And I will turn it over to her to walk through a lot of these updates. But I guess I will still the first one, which is that we did hire our Climate Action Plan Program Manager, Nina Rasmussen, in May of this year. So she's been here for a couple months now and is already been doing a lot of work. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Nina, to walk through this update.
Thanks, Richard. So to start, I'll go over the a little bit about the climate action element as part of the comprehensive plan update. So we've contracted with Cascadia Consulting to do a lot of this work, and that's a lot of this is very new. As some of you may know, the climate element is a new aspect that is required as part of the Growth Management Act, and so this is something that we've been developing sort of from scratch. It is not just your standard update. So Cascadia has done a lot of work in pulling policies and plans together for review, as well as an equity assessment and looking at the gaps and trends and opportunities that would help inform and shape this element as we have been drafting it. So throughout this process, we've been working closely with them. We have gone to the Planning Commission to present several different drafts of the element as we've gotten continual feedback. So it has had multiple revisions. And then we did, in addition to that, have a public comment period open online, as well as a public hearing that was held during one of Planning Commission's meetings. And so after incorporating all of that feedback, Planning Commission approved the element on June 20th with a recommendation of bringing that to City Council for consideration in the fall. And additionally, in order to do this work, we were able to complete it by applying for and receiving funds via a grant from the Washington Department of Commerce. So we were able to do this work and hire Cascadia within budget and at no cost to the city, other than utilizing staff time. And the content that is within the element is essentially the overarching goals and specific objectives and policies are outlined for each goal. So these are things such as ecosystem resilience, infrastructure resilience, reducing climate change impacts on our community. And they largely focus on sort of those two pillars of climate action, which are mitigation, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and then resiliency of our community and our built environment so that we can handle those impacts in the future. And so, as I mentioned before, we are going to bring this back to City Council in the fall for review and adoption. In the meantime, we are currently working on the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA, review. And we have already submitted our required notice to Commerce in preparation of this adoption. So with that, I'll move on to the Climate Action Plan implementation updates. As Richard mentioned, I've been here for about 2 months now. And during that time, I've been tasked to sort of assess where we're at, really figure out where our gaps are and what our needs are. And so in doing that, I've also been completing some other work as we are able to. One of those items is our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. As a reminder, this is something that we are striving to update every 2 years. So our last inventory was for 2019. The current inventory that is being updated will give us 2021 numbers. And then we will begin compiling information for 2023 next spring once data is available. We are also working to start outreach and engagement with our community. We have been at one farmers market already. We have a couple more that we plan to attend to really make sure that the community knows that we are present and that we are continually doing this work. And just to get some feedback too, we want to continually hear what people's priorities are when it comes to implementing those action items, because there are so many. And we do plan on attending additional events throughout the summer and throughout the year as we get more of this work off the ground. In addition to that, we've also heard that community involvement in the process is very important. And so we are working on a proposal to put together a community climate committee and get some involvement in that capacity. Not only are we working with our community members, but we also want to make sure we are working with our neighboring communities. And so we are currently collaborating with Shoreline and Lake Forest Park and trying to really build those relationships up. But so far, we are working to put together just a small series of workshops that are energy related for residents of all 3 cities over the summer, and hopefully build that up over the coming months and years to really be a robust partnership. And in conjunction with that, we are also looking at other opportunities for partnership for something mutually, beneficial, especially for these partnerships that are already in existence, such as, Eastside Climate Partnership or Eastside Climate Challenge, resources that we can tap into where that expertise is already there and the work is already being done. So we are exploring those options as we, sort of get into this work. And then for next year, we are looking to do a solar campaign for our residents, really get some education out there, work with nonprofits and solar installers to encourage residents to convert to solar energy. So we are working to get that off the ground right now. And of course, a lot of this work, it can be very costly. And we do realize that. So we are also continually looking at what grants are available out there. We are working with a consultant to help us identify some of these opportunities. And so far, we have looked at several of these. There are specific ones identified in the agenda memo that was provided, but just to give you an idea, a lot of these focus on electric vehicle charging, energy, and not all of these that we've looked at are really good contenders. There are some that we just are not in the right place to apply for, or we are just not competitive for some of these. So we are continually looking, and that's something that will constantly be on our radar as we move forward, just seeing what opportunities are presenting themselves for funding. And then we are also working to look at some waste management improvements with Republic Services, as we'll hear soon in the next council meeting. But that will include, revising everything from recycling and compost education, adding those elements in more broadly, and potentially looking at compost mandates and recycling mandates. So those are all things to come in the next few months. And I think, as has been said before, we are assessing this work right now and really trying to see what our immediate needs are and what sort of what the priorities are that are rising to the top. And so we do plan on coming back in the fall to take a better look at what our funding needs are. But we also have amassed quite a few different projects that we would like to implement. And of course, the CAP has plenty of project ideas in there as well. So we will be assessing all of those, seeing what is really impactful, what is feasible for our greenhouse gas emissions reductions, for our community resiliency, and then pulling out those priority items, presenting to you all, what are the resources that are needed to make that happen, and potentially coming forward with some ideas on how to make that happen with grants and other opportunities. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions either on the CAP implementation or the climate action element.
Councilmember Shrupnik.
This is great. I'm super excited about this, and Richard. A couple of little comments. I love everything that you're already doing, and of course, I want more. As we know, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, municipal operations is about 1%. So the effort really needs to come from our community, and our effort as a city needs to be focused on our community. So a couple of things. I'm curious about the committee role, and whether we're thinking about, I'm curious how you're thinking about the role. Is it advisory? Are they community liaisons? Is it getting the word out? I'm not sure what we're thinking there. I mean, it's all of that's needed. And then a couple other comments, even if we don't enter or join formally with the Eastside Climate Challenge, I would like us to consider the use of the community engagement tool, the Bright Action tool. It's really terrific, very, very low cost, and it's a kind of great entree. And I know we're all about having fun while we're creating change, and that's a great way to do it. And the last thing I would say is I really appreciate your focus on solar. I'm hoping we can get the word out sooner than later about the tax credits, because each year starting in 2023, households can get tax credits for several $1,000s. Depends on what you end up purchasing, but for combination of heat pumps and EVs. there are tax credits for both, and that's not, it's a direct rebate essentially. So there, it's not income based. It is off your taxes. And there's 2 times a year when people think about heat pumps. One is right now, because heat pumps basically serve as air conditioners, and the other is in the winter. So I'm hoping maybe we can get a blurb about the incentives for that. So my only question was really about the community committee. Sorry, that was very long.
That's great comments. Thank you, Councilmember. And in regards to the committee, we are still kind of exploring different models and options, but we're definitely leaning towards an advisory role type of committee to the city manager, similar to what we've done with the DEIA task force. That seems to be a good model that kind of provides us a way to tap into the expertise that's in the community, but also hopefully reach out and get some diversity on that task force as well, so that we're, you know, getting a good mixture of the different segments of the community, hopefully some business owners. So yeah,
I would
so
encourage
stay tuned
us
for
to-
that, but I think that's the model we're kind of focusing on right now.
Awesome. I would encourage us also to think about liaisons. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
I just have a comment. Probably should have waited, or can I give a comment? Just
I
tagging
mean,
on.
we're not voting on anything here.
Okay. Well, Richard and Nina, I just want to say thank you for your presentation, but the thing that I'm most excited about is what Councilmember Shrubnik brought up about the committee. It's something that we've been talking, you know, we've been talking about for about 4 years, or at least something that I've been dreaming of. So I'm thankful to hear that we have a place that we can create a climate action committee here with the city of Kenmore. So it's really nice to see this on your plan. So thank you.
Any other comment or questions? Right, not seeing any. Thank you very much, Richard and Nina.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, affordable housing update presented by Deputy City Manager Stephanie Lukash, Housing and Human Services Manager Tamby Cork, along with Elizabeth Murphy from Plymouth Housing.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. I'm happy to be here with Tamby and Elizabeth to give you an update on our affordable housing efforts. So we have a short slide deck that we'll go through tonight, and just reminding our council and our community that affordable housing is the council's #2 priority, and that's why we're here, and we're grateful for your leadership in this important issue for our region and our city. So as a reminder, the Kenmore Supportive Housing Project is the old Shell property, which is located at 6532 Bothell Way. And it's a very unique partnership between 4 entities: the City of Kenmore, ARCH, Regional Coalition for Housing, Bastyr University, and Plymouth Housing. And it will provide 100 units of housing, all for those at or below 30% AMI. And the target population is seniors, veterans, individuals with disabilities, and those who are formerly homeless. And we're really excited about the Bastyr Apothecary Tea House and Wellness Clinic, community wellness clinic that will be on the ground floor of the space. So I know what you've all been dying to know is, when will we break ground on this project? What are the next steps? And so I'm delighted to have Elizabeth Murphy from Plymouth Housing with us, and she's going to walk us through the timeline that you see on the screen. We've been working with her on this, and before she says anything, I just want to tell you all what a tremendous partner Plymouth has been in this work. I can't say enough about their hard work and efforts and determination to get us to the finish line. We've talked about this project a couple of times tonight with our legislators. It's been such a long journey and we're really just getting started. It's a marathon race to do this kind of work. And Elizabeth has so much experience and has been such a centering force for us. We've gone through these twists and turns on this journey to get to this point, but she's going to walk us through the timeline and what will be next. So Elizabeth, take it away.
Thanks, Stephanie. And I echo your words. The city of Kenmore has been such a wonderful partner and I appreciate your leadership. So I want not only to show where we're going, but also all that has happened up until this point. I think it kind of feels like it's a hurry up and wait, but we've actually done a ton of work that has gotten us to this point. So just kind of looking back, 2022, when the RFP was released, Plymouth, with our partners, the city of Kenmore and Arch, mobilized quickly to submit funding applications in the fall of 2022. As you all know, there were significant delays in the announcement for funding just due to a lot of the constraints that exist in our within our public funding arena. So final funding decisions were actually not announced officially until June of this year. So we are just now able to kind of get a bigger funding picture. We are planning to submit our permits in August of this year, as well as do our SEPA and NEPA review, and also in Q3, probably around September, do our community outreach, which will include us inviting all neighbors within a certain mile radius of the building to a community meeting so that Plymouth Housing can present and introduce ourselves and also give neighbors the opportunity to ask questions. This is something Plymouth does extremely well, and I'm happy to say that our communications team is already preparing for this. In Q1 of 2024, we are aiming to have our permits all issued, starting construction, as well as our groundbreaking celebration. So definitely we'll see a lot of activity in Q1 of 2024. And then in Q2 of 2025, if all goes according to plan, we are aiming for a construction completion and our opening celebration. Typically, lease up can take anywhere from 6 to 8 months. So we're estimating right now that we will be fully leased with all 100 units full by Q4 of 2025. So it might feel, I think, like this is a long journey, but I was telling Stephanie last week that this is actually one of the quickest projects that I've ever seen. And it's because of your leadership and your partnership and your advocacy at all levels of government to make this happen. So much appreciated.
Are there any questions for Elizabeth on the timeline or for Tambi or I?
Questions? Not seeing any questions.
Great, thanks.
Appreciate the update. Thank you very much.
And we just have one other slide. I'll turn it over to Tambi to talk about what's next on the whole property.
Great, thank you. So as city staff in Plymouth and Arch have been working diligently on the Shell property with Plymouth, we've also been working to create the RFP for the next project. So the next project will be what we call the whole property. As you know, it's just right down the street at 7010 Northeast 181st. We're really excited about this site. It's local to grocery stores, pharmacies. It's just a really great site for a housing project. We have not issued the RFP yet. As you can see, we're planning to release it this summer. We're hoping to receive responses by October and then select that partner and proposal in the fall. But we can share that we are looking to have a mixed use building with a community space on the ground floor, and that we really see some significant opportunity at this parcel to have just really a wide range of housing choices. And we've left the RFP fairly broad so that our developers can be creative about maximizing the effectiveness of the property there just down the street. We look forward to coming back to you soon with more information about proposals and the project and releasing this RFP. And of course, we are thankful to partnership with Arch, who are just incredible in helping us to move these projects along.
Any questions on?
Councilor File?
Thank you. And I believe we had a small update on this at the council retreat. And we heard that this, the hope for this is middle housing. And I believe the quote I heard was 50 to 100% of AMI. So when I think, and when many others think about workforce housing, we think about that 40 to 60%. You know, as a pathway both to be able to find livability within one's community, but also fuel local jobs. You know, we have many jobs in our local market that are going unfulfilled because people are moving out of our community and then working near their newer community. So this is such an important project, both for our community well-being and the health of our business and infrastructure, and supporting a sustainable, thriving community. So I'm excited about this. I understand that we're looking at a couple different levels. And so is this going to be kind of like 50-50 split in units, or we're not talking about 5 units of workforce housing and a whole bunch of others, right? I mean, that wouldn't be workforce housing. That would be a drop in a bucket. But I'm hoping that we will not be taking that approach.
Thank you for the question. We are not prescribing in the RFP the number of units that could be of what type of housing, but that certainly will be part of the selection process.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Shrubnik?
Similarly, I mean, I said this in one-on-one as well. I think the ground floor, we're looking at commercial, retail, or community space, or some combination. I just want to make sure that we're clear about that. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much for the update.
Great, thank you. And thanks, Elizabeth.
Council member reports.
Your Honor, I just have.
Yes, of course.
So on at the July 24th City Council meeting, it'll be a pretty busy night. We'll have CIP update, Public Works Operations Center cost and funding update. And we're also going to be bringing forward the draft of the DEIA strategic plan and 5-year roadmap. And normally when you get something for a city council meeting, you get it 10 days in advance, and that would be this coming Friday. I actually gave it to you last week so that you could have a head start. It's a pretty substantive document, so I just wanted to give you plenty of time to look it over. It consists of 2 main documents. One is the Word document that has the text about the goals and the objectives. And it's a pretty easy, easy on the eyes type of a document. And it's an important one. But the other document is a spreadsheet. And that's more of the working nitty-gritty part of the strategic plan. It has the sub-objectives, and then it has which department has the lead, timeline, whether additional resources are needed. And so that's really kind of the working document that goes with the strategic plan. You'll have both of those to look at on the 24th. And but if you have any thoughts or ideas or questions between now and then, feel free to ask them. So we won't be asking you to adopt it on the 24th, just to give us your thoughts, ideas, and direction. And then we'd come back to you in September for final adoption. The DEIA advisory committee has weighed in on it, and we've adopted most of their comments. And so has staff. We gave it to all staff. We held a couple of workshops with all of our coworkers, and they gave us really good feedback, and we've incorporated most of that as well. So lots of good input from staff and our DEI committee. So that's all I have.
Councilor reports and comments. Councilmember Baker.
I don't have anything to report this time.
Councilor Marshall.
Thanks to staff for an absolutely awesome 4th of July celebration. I saw it from across the lake, and I think we put up a good rivalry with whoever is further down the lake, maybe Sheridan Beach or something like that was going at the same time. It's absolutely wonderful to have that again after not having for so many years. So thank you.
Councilmember Kukler.
I have a couple of comments and updates, and I'll try to keep them brief. So the Seashore Transportation Forum met this past Friday, and I know some of these, infrastructure projects take so long to get off the ground, but they're kind of fun and exciting to know that they're coming, I think. Anyway, Shoreline got a $20 million federal grant to fix their 145th corridor to Aurora, and the long-term plan is for much of Aurora to change. So I think that will be really exciting to have non-motorized. They're going to have a non-motorized bridge, bicycle infrastructure, and then to the east of, to Lake Forest Park, which I know many of us probably drive to get to I-5. That part will be funded by Sound Transit for BRT. And we got an update from WashDOT on the Complete Streets updates. They have been working on a process by which they're going to work with local jurisdictions. Kenmore's adopted that principle of complete streets, which is basically, safe multimodal transportation. So they'll be looking to work with our staff on that. And then also I wanted to comment on a resident who came to our public comments the other week. I attended the rewilding event at St. Ed's, and they had a really interesting concept about how we can how we need wildlife corridors through public and private property, really to have an effective approach. And I just love that we had a resident who noticed the restorative work that we're doing at Tlaqueties and came to one of our meetings. I hope more will continue that pattern, and that we'll have, more connectedness throughout our entire city. And then finally, I also attended the 4th of July celebration, which was awesome. I agree with what our city manager said earlier. You couldn't just help but smile looking at our community there at that event, right? And specifically, I saw one of our officers fixing a bubble machine for these 2 little kids, and they were so happy, just so thrilled to have all these bubbles blowing towards them. And I just want to thank all of our staff who worked at those booths and went, above and beyond to staff that event. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Councilor Shevnik.
I too have to give a shout out for the 4th of July. I took so many pictures of that beach perspective, the same that city manager took. I was just in awe and so excited. And then as I was walking up the hill at the end, just seeing the sea of people, I have never seen anything like that in Kenmore. I guess other people have gotten the message that we have a lot of fun here. And on that note, I just also want to give a shout out to Brew Row. Summer's a great time to visit our wonderful breweries, and not only can you be indoors, you can be outdoors. There's music, there's trivia nights, and open mic nights, and just they have a lot of different events and fun things. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that they can turn and spend their money in Kenmore.
Councilmember File.
Thank you. I just want to thank the residents who spoke up tonight. It's a beautiful thing to see the celebration and support for arts and culture in our community and the acceptance for it. And for the few folks that have concerns about it, there's always a small amount of fears when people don't know what to expect of something new and changing. And I know that our community will grow to feel fondly about this artwork that's coming to us. International Nutritional Sustainable Partners, INSP, have reached out and are hoping that we can partner on a Farm Box program for Kenmore to be a host. They've been working around the Puget Sound region, providing direct farm boxes to community in need. And summer is a time where there's actually less resources than more. So maybe we can look into that. I'm going to share that information forward. And other than that, I just want to thank you for another good evening and good opportunity to support our community.
Deputy Mayor.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
All right, I have one thing. I'll try to keep it short. It actually came up a little bit earlier today, but I was planning on bringing it up anyway. Arts of Kenmore has been a wonderful partner with the city for the last, I have no idea, probably as long as Kenmore's been a city. And I had a conversation with Sarah Solom Hayashi a couple weeks back, and she expressed that she was really hoping that the city would be willing to, I'm going to get the terminology wrong, so I'll apologize ahead of time, but she was really hoping that the city would recognize AOK as our official arts organization for the city of Kenmore. She said it would open up a lot of funding for them nationally and regionally. And I would like to add that to a future agenda as we go into budget, because there might be some budget implications. So I would like to see if there's consensus to add something to the agenda in maybe September.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Not seeing any opposition to that. Nothing else to come before us. We are adjourned.